Hello and welcome. This is Beverly in the kitchen. Hey, this is Beverly Fells Jones, the Silver Fox of Consciousness. And today we're in the kitchen. When I bought my Acuma, I think that's how you pronounce it, A-U-C-M-A, mixer, I did an unboxing video. I did a video using the mixing paddle, and I did a video with the whisk. And that was quite some time ago. I have made bread using the dough hooks. I just didn't make a video of it. So today I decided that I would make a video using this. Now, a couple people asked me about this and getting this. At the time I bought this, it was around $110 or so. And I got the extended warranty. So a friend of mine recently asked me, and this is May 2020, about the link for this. And I went, and they were sold out. They said they weren't sure when it was coming back in. Now, due to the things that are happening in the world today, I don't know where this is made. Now, this could, a whole bunch of things are no longer made in the United States. So this may have been made in China. I don't know. If you wanted to look it up, the link for this is in the description. And they have it in black, but the red was out of stock. But that also tells me people have bought it. And yes, if you use the link and buy it, I will get a little bit of it because I am an Amazon affiliate. What YouTube person is it? I don't know. So today I'm making my regular rolls, bread. Sometimes I make it into rolls, sometimes I make it into bread. Well, I've been making rolls lately. I think I'm going to make it into bread. In fact, I got to pull out the bread pan when we get ready to make it into bread. So today I'm going to share with you a recipe that I keep right here on a sticky sheet on my cabinet. Actually, there's two recipes there, but they're so close together in the recipe. One I got from a YouTuber, one I got from another one. One is considered no knead. All right, so no knead, you don't have to go kneading. So I like to knead sometimes, and since I have the dough hook, I can knead. So I am using the kneading recipe. So what's the main difference between the two of them? The amount of yeast. In the no knead, it's only 1/4 of a teaspoon of yeast, and in the knead, there's a teaspoon. So if you are new to this channel, I want to ask you, I think I'm required to ask you to subscribe to the channel if you like what you see and hear. Also, give me a thumbs up so that Google will, I get enough thumbs up, Google will suggest me to other channels or whatever. I don't know how this stuff works. I'm just an older woman on YouTube doing YouTube videos because I like it. Thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell, share. That's the one thing I keep forgetting to ask people to do. If you like this recipe and you think you have some friends that like this recipe and would like to know some different ways of cooking and creating your own recipes, because a lot of times, a lot of these recipes and things that I cook are things that I just throw together because I was in the refrigerator and did. Anyway, let me stop talking about this and let's start baking bread. Okay, so I'm ready, I think. Anyway, so my recipe here, so I will put it down in the description. And we're just going to call these yeast rolls. These we'll call yeast. Maybe I'll just go ahead and make rolls instead of bread. I love rolls. It's easier for me. This calls for 1/2 cup plus 2 tablespoons of milk. Now, I've been going to pastry school to become a pastry chef. And one of the things that they've taught us that weighing your food or weighing your ingredients is more accurate. It has to do with how much hydration is in the bread and how much sugar and how sweet and how the yeast or the baking powder, baking soda works with other things. I'm learning all that stuff. Simple. If you want to weigh, if you want to be a person who weighs, it's 150 milliliters of milk. 1 egg, room temperature. One day I'm going to do a video about eggs. Butter, that's 3.5 tablespoons or 50 grams. Sugar is 2.5 teaspoons or 30 grams. Yeast, 1 teaspoon. So this is a knead recipe. So I'm using 1 teaspoon of yeast. And going with yeast, I buy yeast, well, because of the lockdown and people wiping out the flour and everything off the shelves, I had to go to, well, I only went to a second store. I went to the first store because people don't know this. So people buy this. This is yeast. This one is Red Star Active Dry. I'm not being what is it called? Paid for any of this. But this is my daughter's packet. I took it out of, and we keep it in a refrigerator. And if you're using this, you're going to use 1 packet of yeast. I buy mine this time like this. And this is a 4-ounce jar. I normally buy a 1-pound bag. And in that 1-pound bag, I put it in a canning jar, seal it up, and keep it in the refrigerator. Some people say keep it in the freezer, but most of the time I don't have room. So you can buy it like this if you bake a lot. It's actually less expensive to buy a jar like this and keep it in your refrigerator, or a small jar like this you can keep in the freezer. And I've had, the 1 pound has lasted me 1.5 years, right, before it started getting weak. So, but it's still a lot cheaper to buy it in bulk if you bake a lot. So that's the yeast. Salt, 1.25 teaspoons. Now for me this time, I accidentally bought salted butter. So if you have salted butter, you want to reduce the amount of salt that you put in your recipe. So I had salted butter, so I only used 1/2 teaspoon of butter. Salt. This calls for 1.25 teaspoons. Now, in my class, my professor told us to always half the amount of salt. And that's based on her taste, not mine. I kind of like the flavor of salt. And also, other times when I'm baking bread, I may put some herbs in it. And that kind of takes, the edge off the salt, or you put a little less salt in it. But this calls for 1.25 teaspoon of salt, or 7 grams. Flour, 2.5 cups leveled off, or 325 grams. And then we're going to make 40-gram rolls. So I'm going to weigh the dough when I get ready to do that. And an egg wash. And an egg wash is just, if you don't know, it's just, you can whip up egg and you can either put a little milk in it or you can put a little water in it. And then you whip it up. Okay? That's the recipe. So, this is my flour. And you know what? Let me change the camera angle for you. Okay. Angle changed. Don't see quite into the pan, but you can see what I'm putting in. So this is the 2.5 cups of flour, or 325 grams. I am going to add the yeast, which for me is 1 teaspoon. And yeah, let's do it this way. My little spatula. And I'm going to mix the yeast thoroughly into the flour. I want it evenly distributed. And you can do it before you put it in your big pan or whatever. You can, you always wait to add the salt. And so my salt I have mixed in with my butter. But you can always, because the salt and the yeast interact together, and the excuse me, the salt will retard the yeast a little bit. Okay, I'm going to take the room temperature egg and I'm mixing it in with my 150 milliliters of milk. Okay, so those two are together. I'm going to take my melted butter and I'm going to add salt, which is mixed together right now. And by the way, I said that I had salted butter, so I reduced the amount of salt that I was using. Okay, I hate to waste anything, so I'm going to take my scraper. Now, you know, if I wasn't doing the video, I would not, well, I would have to put the butter in here because I had to melt the butter. But, yeah, all these little containers, some things, so the egg would have, well, yeah, again, I'll always take my egg and crack it in its own thing, because every now and then you get a rotten egg. Or the shell could have been cracked and you didn't know it a little bit, just enough to add air to it. And it is awesome, awful. Okay, so what do I have? I have my milk, my egg, my butter, my sugar, and salt in here. Okay. Now I did a slight modification to this recipe. I always do, but I'm giving you the correct recipe that I make all the time, so I know it works. So this is a little different. So in my refrigerator, I had open a can of sweetened condensed milk. Now I have another recipe that I think I've shared with you before. It's kind of like a Hawaiian sweet roll. It's a recipe that you put in, back over here is my bread machine, and you start it in the bread machine, that way you don't have to work hard, and you just put it on dough, and then you pull dough out and then you shape it. Well, I had this half a can of sweetened condensed milk. So what I did, and I'm not putting it in the directions below, I'm just putting you the regular one, is I took 2 ounces of that sweetened condensed milk and added it to regular milk. So I'm not adding sugar to this recipe, because sweetened condensed milk is sweet. Oh, super sweet. In fact, that recipe that calls for 4 ounces of it, I had to cut it down to 3 ounces because it made the bread so sweet. It was terrible. All right. We're not plugged in. Let me plug this guy in. Come on. So it's all plugged in. I'm going to lower it down, and this has a shield that I put on here, and so there's a feed hole right there. So flour and yeast are in here, and now all my liquids as well as my salt, and no sugar because I use the sweetened condensed milk, so I'll figure it out how sweet it is. So you know, you make bread without sugar. You know that. You can do that. But this recipe calls for that. So I'm going to turn this, I'm going to pour a little bit in here, not a lot, and I'm going to turn this on slow. Now, to me, this is not loud. And hopefully to you, it's not loud either. In cooking school, we have KitchenAid. And it is a little bit quieter, and it's a commercial size KitchenAid machine. Which one do I like better? Of course, I'm going to tell you I like mine. Okay. Okay, so I have allowed this to run for 10 minutes. So I've let it knead for 10 minutes, and it is absolutely, positively gorgeous, this bread. So I'm going to take this off. Yeah, it's stuck to my placemat because it's got the, what do I want to call it, suction cups on it. Okay, lock is that way, unlock is that way. Okay, so it's unlocked. Now, a lot of times I just leave it in here and I stick it up in my microwave and let it rise. But this time, this is so just nice and smooth, and it's been kneaded really well. Why do we knead? Well, we knead so the gluten, okay, so those folks of you who are gluten intolerant, this won't work. Anyway, so it's the gluten that causes the bread to stick together and give you the texture that you need. And so when you knead it, you know, it's like when I said I'm sitting there, helps me de-stress. All right. So that's why I knead. But in here in the machine, and even in the class, we allowed it to run about 8 to 10 minutes, depending on the bread. And we made much larger recipes than this. Remember, it's just me. Now, my daughter will eat some of my breads. You know, I invite her to help me eat it so that I can make another batch, since I love making bread so much. All right, so I'm going to take this. I have this cover that I used in the microwave. I'm just going to set it on top of that. It has holes in the top. And I'm setting it up in the microwave. Yes, I put it in the microwave because there's no draft and it maintains an even temperature, and the microwave is over the stove, so even if we're cooking, it'll get some warmth in there. Now, you can put it in your oven and turn on the light, and that'll warm up your oven a little bit. But for me, with another person in my household who loves to cook and bake also, she may come in, turn on the oven, and my bread is in there rising. No, I'm smart. I put a big sign out. If I'm using the oven for something, I put a big sign on the stove saying oven's on, or don't turn on the oven, bread's in it, whatever I'm doing, if I'm drying things or that kind of thing. So now I'm going to put this in the microwave. And no, I'm not going to give you a picture of me putting it in a microwave. You know what it's like to put something in a microwave. Anyway, I'm going to put it in a microwave, and I'm going to let it rise until it's doubled, and then I'll be back. Well, for some reason, the mic wasn't recording, so I didn't figure out what it was until it was done. So yes, I used parchment paper in the on the pan, and I did two of them. I had a silicone mat underneath that small one, but as you'll see, I never used that regular tray. But it was just showing you setting up that parchment paper on there. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to put a little butter on the parchment paper. This, some of you and some of the things you do, you don't put a little butter on it. But I do because I really don't want the roll as I'm, you know, making them to actually stick to the paper. And so just a little bit of butter, very little. You can use shortening. No, not shortening. We don't use shortening. We can use a little olive oil, coconut oil, butter, or almond oil, grapeseed oil. Those are my legitimate ones. Now, I only used a little bit of flour on there, not much. But as you see, I am working with the dough, making sure that I get all of the um, air out of it from rising. So what I'm doing now is I'm starting to weigh to make the rolls. I think this is the 100 gram. So we're going to do two kinds. We're going to do 100 gram, which is a larger roll, and we're going to do 40 grams, which is the smaller one. The recipe itself calls for a 40-gram roll. So I'm weighing it on the scale, and it is, as you see, a little bit more than 100 grams. So, sometimes you watch these cooking shows and they're so perfect and they go, yep, that's about it, and that's 100 grams. Sometimes I wonder, because even for all the times that I've done this, I haven't gotten it exactly right. Now, as you saw, I made a nice little hole. I kept kneading and shaping it underneath. So you're rolling the top, getting the top smooth, but underneath you're stretching the dough and you're putting some underneath. And this coming up should be able to give you an idea of way. I just can't seem to get that 100 grams. I'm a perfectionist, by the way, so it's like, okay, we're going to perfect this to make sure we get. Okay, well, I wanted to slow this down so you could see what I was doing with the roll. I'm rolling it under and making a ball at the same time. So the open part of the roll is going to be at the bottom, but the top is nice and rolled. And then I'm going to take that and I'm putting all that open piece, just making it in a roll and putting it in the pan. And so that helps you shape your dough and get it just right as far as the dough is concerned. By doing it this way, you incorporate all the little tiny pieces that I had, and it helps make sure that the dough has, deflated the entire thing. Doesn't need additional kneading, but we want to make sure that we have these nice rolls that are shaped really well. Now I'm going to speed this up a little bit as we go through and make the rest of the rolls. Okay, got all the rolls done. The ones in the lower, the big ones are the 100 gram ones, and then we have 4 of the 40-gram ones weighed out using the kitchen scale. The rolls kind of rolled off of there, but I think in this section I was trying to tell you about, weighing them and making them the size that you want. That's why I did the experiment with the 2 sizes, so that I could find out which one I really want. The 40 grams are perfect for when you are, having company and you're making a roll. So off they go into the microwave for proofing so that they rise and get to double the size. All right, well, here they are, all set and risen. You see the 100-gram ones are really large. The smaller ones, looks like I didn't play with them enough because they got all kinds of wonderful shapes on, on, on them there. But you've got to be careful when you're making the shapes. And I'm obviously pointing out that I didn't do them. The one in the far left corner at the bottom appears to be shaped very well. So that one got shaped right and me doing the correct thing. Now, what I'm doing is I'm going to do an experiment. We've got the egg wash right here, and that's an egg, scrambled, listen to me, all whipped up with some water in it. All right. And then, so we want to make sure it's pretty well done. And then we have some milk. So I'm using 2 different washes on top, and it will make a major difference in what your rolls look like when you take them out of the oven after the wash. So I'm making sure the eggs and the water are mixed very well, and I am going to look at the milk and then get them washed. As you notice in my hands, I've got 2 different brushes because I don't want to get them mixed up. Now, one of the things is you need a really sharp knife and this knife is a serrated edge, and I thought it would work, but one of the things happens when you let the bread proof too long, the bread is up too high. I mean, it's too puffy. So you've got to really take your time, because when you're putting that split in there, you do not want to deflate the bread. And so that's what I was working on, making sure that I went deep enough, because you need to go fairly deep. Some people use a razor blade. There's a special tool for bakers in order to make that split. But I was being very careful, and that's why I went back, because I really had allowed these to proof too long. And now I'm going to put the milk wash on the bottom 3. Okay, so I'm just going to come across the bottom 3, and I want you to know that when I put them in the oven, I had to make sure I remembered. So that's why I did the bottom 3, because I knew it was 1 big roll and 2 small rolls. Yeah, because I wasn't going to label them to say, okay, these were the ones that I did the milk wash for. And now I'm doing the egg wash on the other 6, because I personally really like what the egg wash does. So we're going to skip on out here and get the egg wash done, and then we'll pop on back. And once I do this, I'm putting them in a 375-degree oven. Okay, well, I've got them out of the oven, right? And let's see. Gotta turn this the way I had it before. So these three had the milk wash, and the rest of them had the egg wash. What I noticed is the egg wash ones are shiny, And the milk wash one, they have a little doll sign. It's kind of like, satin, satin paint sign, other than, high gloss. So this is high gloss, that's satin. And they smell so good. I mean, really good. So, you're supposed to wait a while before you take a piece of bread. Supposed to let it cool down. But I'm going to take this one in the middle that's kind of ugly. Well, it's not really ugly. It's just got a little piece on the side. And pull it out. They did rise a little bit more after I put them in the oven. But this guy was in the middle. And I'm going to... Nice and hot. Let's see. Hopefully you can see the texture of this. It's got nice little holes. And it really should have cooled some more otherwise before I cut it. But this is absolutely gorgeous. And I love the way it rose. So let's take my little butter container here. Yes, I do let my butter sit out on the counter. My grandmother let it sit out on the counter. My mother let it sit out on the counter. And let's get this other little tiny one. Put some butter on it. Oh, and I can smell the sweetness of it. So let's see. I'm going to take this little tiny one. Oh my. So, remember I said I made this recipe just a little bit different from what you got in the description because I'm smacking this stuff really good, because I used some of the sweetened condensed milk. So I took out the sugar out of the recipe and used the sweetened condensed milk. 2 ounces of that. And then 2 ounces of regular milk. Tasting this, I can taste the sweetness, but I probably could have put all 4 ounces of the sweetened condensed milk, but this is just enough, just tasty enough. Because I used salted butter, I cut the salt in half. Perfect. I can taste a little bit of salt in here, but this is really good. And I think the 40 ounces are good for, like my side dish when I'm eating dinner. But these, which are 100 ounces, or not ounces, 100 grams, they're going to be perfect to make a sandwich with. Or a hamburger, but yes, I'm going to make hamburgers. So, it'll be perfect for a hamburger bun also. But this is a very good dinner roll, hamburger bun. I can make it, you can take this and make it into bread. So you can put it in the bread pan and make it a bread. But the texture is really good. And I'm going to give the mixer a thumbs up on the mixer and using the dough hook. There was no strain on the motor. I'm ready to put more of this in my mouth again. It had no strain on the motor at all. So it was able to mix this up. Now, this is a small batch, and I don't make big batches right now. I think up to 3 cups of flour I've used. So there, but if I needed 6 cups or more, I don't know how that motor would work. Now, it's a 600 watt motor, so it should be able to handle 4 to 6 cups of flour and knead that pretty well. And I didn't put it all the way up on the highest speed. So I had it on like speed 2. And then for a little while I put it up on speed 3. And it did very well, and it was no problem. So an A+ for my mixer, and an A+ for my modified recipe. And you can try the modified recipe, but down in the description is the actual recipe for this. This is Beverly Fells Jones, the Silver Fox of Consciousness. If you like this, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. And if you are a subscriber, thank you so much for following me and subscribing to the channel. If you haven't, hit the bell so you're notified for whenever I decide to upload a video. I do not tell you that every Monday there's going to be a video, or every Tuesday or every Wednesday. I try to put up a video once a week. And that is depending on my schedule at home. So thank you again, and I will see you in the next video.